A tuple is a collection in Python similar to a list with a very important caveat. That is that a tuple is immutable. What does immutable mean? It means that it cannot be changed after it's created. So then what would the tuple be useful for then, if we cannot change it? A very common use case for a tuple is to store data that is commonly stored together. Let's look at the following example. Let's create a tuple that will store a student name, a student number, and the birth year of that student. We can just give it a name since it's a normal variable. Let's call it student. And then the only difference between syntax-wise between a tuple and the list is that it's using this round brackets as opposed to the list square brackets. So we can have here a name, let's call it Charlie. Then we can have a student number. It can be a string since we don't want it necessarily to be stored as a number, and it sometimes has letters as S in this case. And then the birth year, let's say 2001. If we try to print this, we will see that it prints like this. So it has 3 elements, the exact same shape as it was written. You can see that we can also use indices on it in the very similar way to lists. This is index 0, this is index 1, and this is index 2. But now the most important part about tuples is that if we want to change, let's say, the name from Charlie to something else, let's say Bob, we will probably get an error. So as you can see, the error we're getting is tuple object does not support item assignment. So we can never change the content of the tuple after it's been created. Please pay attention that if we do something like this, so just copy the whole thing and change the name here, this doesn't mean that we're changing something in the tuple, but we are rewriting the tuple altogether. So this will indeed change the tuple, but it will change it by creating a whole new tuple, so it's not considered changing the tuple, it's considered replacing it with a different one. Let's now look at another one. So in this case we have a tuple that holds city coordinates. Just like the example with the name, student number, and date, we cannot change the name without also changing the other variables in the collection. Same for this. If we want to represent New York as a tuple of coordinates, we cannot change just one coordinate since it will no longer be the same position. Then we can also add another one. In this one we use the first element in the tuple to store the city, then the second one to store the country, and then the third one will store the population. Once again, those elements have to be together in order for them to make some sense. If we print them, we will get this. So just like we write them. Now, just like I told you before, if we use indices, we can also extract specific parts of a tuple. So in this case, the latitude and longitude of the city. I believe this is for. We can also do slicing. So in this case, we can use a colon and then 2, which will take everything until index 2 but not included, so Tokyo and Japan. So in this is 0 and 1. And as you can see, we can get this. We can also put them in lists. In this example, we have a list marked by the square bracket, and then we have one tuple for Paris, France, followed by its coordinates, another tuple for Berlin, Germany, followed by its coordinates. So as you can see, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4 tuple because it has 4 elements, and so is the other one. So this is a list. In this case, this would be index 0 of the list, and then Paris would be index 0 of the tuple in the list. And let's say if we want to access Paris, it would be locations of 0 and 0. If you're not sure what this means, please go back to the list video. So let's try this, and also remove the blank space. Let's say this should print Paris. If we hit run, this should print Paris, and then prints Paris. We can also combine the things we learned so far in a for loop. Let me zoom out a bit. So in this case, we'll print the city. Keep in mind we get the location of 0, so it would be Paris, France, then the country, and so on. Let's try this one. So location in this case would be this one and then this one. So remember, it's just like a basket that takes each one of the contents of the list one by one. So the first instance of location will be this tuple. The second instance of location will be this tuple. Then if we use index 0 on this, we'll get Paris. If we use index 1 on this, we'll get France, and so on. The second one, if we use the same index 0 on this, we'll get Berlin. If we get index 1 on this, we'll get Germany. As you can see, we can do this. So as you can see, you can pretty much do anything you can do with list, with the major caveat that you cannot change the contents of tuples. You cannot add elements to tuples, you cannot remove elements from tuples. You can only create them, and you can then remove them or create a new tuple, but never change the content inside the tuple. This has been it about tuples. I hope I'll see you in the next one.